Imagine checking your pocket change and realizing one single Washington quarter could be worth more than $292,000. These aren't ordinary coins, these are rare US quarter-dollar-era treasures hiding in plain sight, dropped in vending machines, sitting in old drawers, or mixed into everyday change. And the crazy part? Most people walk past them without even knowing what they're holding. Before you spend your next quarter, you might want to take a closer look. The 1983 Washington quarter might look like just another coin from the 80s, the kind that slips through your fingers every day without a second thought. But what if I told you that one single quarter from this year sold for an unbelievable $281,000 at auction? And what if I also told you that the reason was a mint error that most people don't even know exists? Today, we're diving into the world of rare mistakes, surprising values, and one Denver minted coin that broke all expectations and turned pocket change into life-changing money. It all starts in 1983, a year when the US Mint was already under pressure. The economy wasn't exactly stable, the public was using coins more heavily, and the Mint was pushing machines at full speed to meet demand. When that happens, mistakes slip through, mistakes like off-center strikes, double dies, weak strikes, and the extremely valuable transitional and plunget errors that can turn a 25-cent coin into a 5- or 6-figure prize. The Denver Mint produced millions of quarters that year, but only a microscopic fraction of them left the presses harboring the flaws that collectors chase today. Imagine someone in 1983 grabbing their spare change to buy a soda, completely unaware that one of those quarters carried a mint error worth more than a luxury car. That's what makes this story so fascinating. These coins were never treated as rare, never protected, never placed in collections, and rarely preserved in high grade. Most of them were tossed into pockets, dropped into car ashtrays, worn down in jukeboxes, and circulated into near disappearance. This is why, today, collectors go absolutely wild when a sharp, clean, high-grade 1983 D-era quarter shows up. They know how impossible it is to find. One of the most famous errors from this year involves a quarter being struck on a copper planchet instead of the proper cupricle-clad composition. Others have doubled dies, misaligned dies, broad-struck surfaces, or even missing clad layers where the copper core is exposed like a bright orange scar across the design. These errors weren't intentionally created, they were simply the result of a mint system under heavy load, producing thousands of coins per minute. A single hiccup in the machinery could create an error that would later sell for tens of thousands of dollars. Collectors still remember the moment a superb gem-quality 1983 D-era quarter hit a major auction house. It carried a dramatic off-center strike combined with a crisp, untouched surface, and experts graded it among the finest known. The bidding started high and only climbed higher, eventually hitting a staggering $42,000 before leaping into a heated bidding war that ended at a jaw-dropping $281,000. That moment changed the market's perspective on modern-era quarters forever. It wasn't just about old coins anymore. It proved that even a coin minted during the era of videocassettes, neon fashion, and early home computers could become a high-value collectible. If it had the right error and the right condition, collectors now specifically look for 1983 D quarters that show unusual anomalies. Some of the most coveted include off-center strikes where parts of Washington's face or the lettering are cut off. Others have broad strikes that give the coin a stretched, flattened appearance because it escaped the collar during striking. Then there are die cracks that run across the surface like lightning bolts, adding uniqueness that increases rarity. One extremely unusual example, struck on a nickel planchet, fetched over $60,000 because of its unexpected metal composition. This is why checking your change still matters. The average person doesn't realize that coins from the 80s can be worth real money. They assume valuable coins are old, worn-out pieces from the 1800s or rare metal compositions like silver or gold. But what they don't know is that a regular 1983 D quarter that looks slightly off could be worth more than a brand new high-end SUV. A coin that weighs differently, has missing edges, or displays doubled letters might be the key to discovering a hidden treasure that's been sitting in a coin jar for decades. Another major factor pushing the value of these coins is the lack of mint sets in 1982 and 1983. The US Mint didn't release official sets those years, which means collectors today have fewer pristine, uncirculated examples to study. Most surviving 1983 D quarters are beat up and heavily circulated. That scarcity alone dries up the value of any high-grade error coin. A 1983 D quarter graded MS-65 with a clear mint error can easily land between $42,000 and $100,000 depending on its strike, surfaces, and visual appeal. And if it's flawless, dramatic, or simply the finest known of its variety, that's when it climbs toward that incredible $281,000 region. Auction houses have repeatedly showcased new finds that stun collectors. One broad-struck 1983 D quarter with near-perfect luster sold for $55,000. Another with a 15% off-center strike paired with razor-sharp details sold for over $78,000. A missing clad layer example graded MS-66 crossed the $90,000 mark because the exposed copper made it visually striking and extremely desirable. These bid numbers keep attention on the 1983 D Denver Mint error quarters year after year, but what makes this coin so engaging for viewers is that it remains incredibly accessible. Anyone could find one. It's not locked away in museums. It's not a coin only inherited through wealthy estates. It's a coin that everyday Americans once used for vending machines, payphones, and toll booths. It's a coin that still shows up in pocket change now and then, especially in older regions where vintage coins circulate longer. That's why people keep searching. Because the idea that a 25-cent coin could be worth over $250,000 sparks curiosity and imagination. It encourages people to take a closer look at their coins, to pick up that odd-looking quarter instead of ignoring it, to do a little research, and maybe, just maybe, find something life-changing. The 1983 D Washington $quarter error is more than just a coin. It's a modern American treasure hunt. It blends history, rarity, human error, and incredible value into a single piece of metal that weighs less than 6 grams. And as long as collectors continue discovering new varieties, new examples, and new grades, the prices will only keep rising. So the next time you come across a quarter with strange marks, a missing layer, an off-center design, or anything that looks not quite right, don't spend it. Check it. Study it. Because hidden in plain sight, in pockets across the country, there are still coins that could bring $42,000, $100,000, or even that legendary $281,000 payday. That is the story of the 1983 D Washington quarter error coin, proof that the smallest things can hold the biggest surprises. The 1984 D Washington quarter might look like just another everyday coin that people spend without thinking twice, but behind that familiar design lies one of the most surprising error varieties collectors hunt for today. It's one of those coins that could be sitting unnoticed in someone's old change jar, a random drawer in the house, or even in a vending machine tray, yet its true value remains hidden until the right eyes see it. And when those eyes do see it, everything changes, because this ordinary-looking quarter has been known to sell for tens of thousands, even crossing into six-figure territory. One of the most shocking sales happened when a collector paid around $37,690, and another example, exceptionally rare and almost flawless, soared to an unbelievable $219,000, proving once again why the 1984 D error quarter is one of the silent giants in the world of coin collecting. The story behind this coin begins during a time when the US Mint was producing millions of Washington quarters every year. In the early 1980s, the Denver Mint was under enormous pressure to produce high quantities on tight schedules, and with such intense production speed comes the real possibility of mistakes slipping through the cracks. The 1984 D Washington quarter became a perfect example of how even the slightest error in the minting process can transform a simple coin into a collector's treasure point. One of the most sought-after errors from that year involves dramatic misstrikes, off-center strikes where the design is shifted outside the coin's normal boundaries. These errors create unique, eye-catching shapes that collectors love because no two are exactly alike. Some of the most valuable ones show between 10% and 30% off-center design, maintaining full dates and mint marks while displaying the misalignments so clearly that even someone with no numismatic experience can recognize the mistake. That combination of clarity, rarity, and visual impact is exactly what drives prices high. Another desirable error is the broad strike. This happens when the retaining collar fails during minting, allowing the metal to expand outward, creating a wider, flatter coin with stretched lettering and distorted rims. These pieces can be stunning to look at, almost like the quarter melted slightly before cooling into a wider disc. Collectors love broad strikes because they're instantly recognizable and dramatic without losing the main design elements that identify the coin. But the error that truly pushed the 1984 D quarter into legendary status is the double die variety. On these pieces, specific parts of the design, such as the motto, the word liberty, or even parts of Washington's profile, appear doubled under magnification. That doubling is caused by a hopping mistake during the production of the dies used to strike the coins. The doubling can be strong or subtle, thick or faint, but any clear doubling on a 1984 D quarter is a massive value driver. Some of the most valuable examples sold at major auctions were double die error varieties preserved in extremely high grade, creating a perfect storm of desirability. One such example shocked collectors when it appeared at a reputable auction house. The coin looked so clean, so well preserved, with such a noticeable doubling that experts knew instantly it wasn't just another rare error, it was one of the best the market had seen. That coin sold for over $108,000, turning an everyday 25-cent piece into a life-changing discovery. Stories like that are exactly why ordinary people still check their pockets, hoping lightning might strike for them too. What's fascinating about the 1984 D quarter is how many people still overlook the signs. Someone might hold one and think the design looks slightly off, the rim a bit wider, or the letters a bit thicker, but instead of investigating it, they simply spend it. Meanwhile, collectors are out there searching, knowing that one exceptional piece is all it takes to change everything. The truth is, the most valuable coins usually come from regular circulation. Most error coins were never intentionally saved. They were accidentally released, used, spent, pocketed, and forgotten. Years later, someone cleaning out an old jar or drawer ends up discovering something extraordinary. Another big auction story involved an off-center 1984 D quarter in beautiful condition. The mint mark and the date were perfectly visible, the design was dramatically shifted, and the coin had never been damaged or scratched from circulation. Collectors immediately recognized it as a standout piece. The bids climbed fast and furiously, and by the end, the final hammer price landed at an impressive $56,500. For a coin someone could have easily dismissed as a minting defect or pocket change, that sale was a powerful reminder of why knowing what to look for pays off. Literally, collectors also value die cracks and cuts on 1984 D quarters. These errors happen when the die begins to deteriorate or break, causing raised lines, blobs of extra metal, or missing portions of the design. A dramatic die cut can transform the appearance of the coin so significantly that it almost looks like a mint sculptor added a new element to the design. These pieces attract a lot of attention because they're bold, visually unusual, and prove exactly how unpredictable the minting process can be. Some of the strongest cut errors have reached between $12,000 and $32,000, depending on grade and size. The key to understanding why these coins sell for so much is simple: rarity combined with visual impact. The sharper the error, the greater the value. The better the condition, the more collectors are willing to pay. And when you have a spectacular error in near-perfect preservation, you enter the six-figure territory, exactly where that incredible $219,000 example stands as the highest verified sale for a 1984 D-era quarter. Collectors today continue to search for these coins with the same passion, hoping to find one more hidden treasure left behind by the rush and chaos of 1980s minting. And the best part? Many of these valuable era quarters were never purposely saved, meaning they could still be out there waiting, sitting among everyday coins in circulation. People check their parking meter change, their cash register drawers, their old jars and bags from years ago, simply because they understand one truth: it only takes one. So whenever someone comes across a quarter from the 1980s, especially one with a Denver mint mark, a closer inspection is always worth the effort. Look at the edges, examine the lettering, check for missing parts of the design, doubling, stretching, or expanding. Something that looks unusual might be a one-of-a-kind mint error, and those are exactly the types of coins that become six-figure treasures. The 1984 D Washington quarter proves once again that the thrill of coin collecting isn't just in knowledge, it's in the possibility. The possibility that a simple coin could be worth thousands. The possibility that a mistake made decades ago at the mint could become someone's best financial discovery. And above all, the possibility that the next great rare error isn't locked away in a museum. It might still be in someone's pocket. Let me know when you're ready for the next script. The 1989 Washington quarter looks like one of the most ordinary coins you could possibly imagine. It's the kind of coin people toss into vending machines, drop between car seats, or leave forgotten in an old jar. But today, we're diving into a version of this quarter that is anything but ordinary, a coin minted with a rare and dramatic error that has pushed collectors into bidding wars, driven auction prices into the tens of thousands, and even shocked experts with sales reaching as high as $300,000. It's almost unbelievable to think that a coin most people ignore could be worth anywhere from $33,300 all the way up to a staggering $300,290. But that's exactly what has happened with the 1989 era Washington quarter. To understand why, we need to look at what makes this coin so intriguing. And it starts with the year itself. The late 1980s wasn't a period known for rare mint errors. For the most part, the U.S. Mint was operating with tight quality control. That's why an error from 1989 is surprising, because it shouldn't exist. It slipped through unnoticed, landed in circulation, and eventually made its way into the hands of somebody who realized this wasn't a normal quarter at all. When collectors talk about this coin, they describe it with a sense of disbelief, like discovering a glitch in the system. Because that's what it is, an accident, a moment where the minting process malfunctioned for a split second, producing something that was never supposed to leave the facility. Collectors who specialize in error coins know how powerful that element of chance is. When a coin survives the production line with a dramatic flaw, it becomes a snapshot of disorder, a frozen moment where the machinery misfired. The 1989 quarter shows those misfires in several forms depending on the specimen. Some examples display off-center strikes so drastic that part of the design disappears completely. Others have double die features, where the details of Washington's profile or the lettering appear shadowed or doubled. There are even pieces discovered with missing clad layers, giving the coin a strange copper-toned surface that immediately grabs attention. Error collectors love these unusual features because each one is unique. Even two coins from the same minting mistake will look slightly different, like fingerprints. As soon as one of these 1989 error quarters surfaced at auction, the bidding didn't just rise, it exploded. The first major sale that brought attention to this coin shocked even seasoned numismatists. What was expected to sell for a few thousand shot past $10,000, then $20,000, climbing steadily as collectors fought for a piece of minting history. By the time the final hammer fell, the price had cost $30,000. And that sale set the stage for what came next. As more examples were discovered, prices climbed higher and higher. One especially dramatic error, featuring a deep off-center strike with nearly half the design missing, became the style of an auction room. That piece sold for well over $100,000, with bidders refusing to back down. Then, in one of the most talked-about auction moments involving modern quarters, a spectacularly preserved Aero specimen reached an almost unbelievable price of $300,290. That sale cemented the 1989 Washington quarter as one of the most valuable modern Aero coins ever to appear. Collectors often talk about rarity, but rarity alone doesn't create demand. It's the combination of rarity, condition, visual appeal, and the story behind the coin. And this coin's story is compelling. It reminds people that treasure can hide in plain sight, that something sitting in your change could turn out to be historically and financially significant. The idea that an ordinary quarter, minted long after the silver era had ended, could bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars adds an element of excitement that keeps collectors searching. People who specialize in modern coins often point to this one as the perfect example of why you should always check your change. Another reason for the coin's popularity is accessibility. Not in terms of price, its value puts it out of reach for most people, but in the sense that it started as a regular circulation coin. It wasn't produced for a special set. It wasn't sold in a collector's edition. It wasn't released to commemorate an event. It simply enters circulation like any other coin. That means there is always a possibility, however small, that someone could still discover one today. It could appear in a coin roll from the bank, as pocket change from a store, or tucked away in a family savings jar that hasn't been opened for decades. That chance alone makes people look twice at every quarter dated 1989. Auction houses continue to list these coins whenever someone is lucky enough to find one. And each new sale adds to the coin's legend. For example, a beautifully preserved Aero specimen sold for $75,000 at a major auction, stunning the room. Another collector, after finding a misaligned strike version in an old jar of coins inherited from a relative, submitted it for grading and watched the price soar at auction to over $90,000. Even lesser Aero varieties from this year, when found in high mint-state condition, regularly bring in over $40,000, proving just how strong the demand is. Collectors often emphasize that the 1989 quarter stands out because of its balance of modern design, historical appeal, and Aero rarity. Washington quarters have been part of American pockets since 1932, but only a handful of years produced Aero coins valuable enough to command 5- and 6-figure prices. The 1983 and 1982 quarters are well known for their mistakes, but the 1989 Aero quarter rises into an entirely different category. It's newer, it's sharper, and the Aeros are often visually dramatic, making them highly desirable for display collections. Another factor that drives its value is condition. A circulated specimen will always be worth far less than one in mint state. But because these Aero coins are so rare to begin with, even lightly circulated pieces have sold for tens of thousands of dollars. The high-end prices, anything above $100,000, belong to coins that survived in exceptional condition, with no damage, scratches, or discoloration. That's why collectors keep stressing the same message: never clean a coin, never polish it, and never try to restore it. A single inappropriate cleaning can take a coin from 6 figures to almost nothing. Despite the buzz around auctions and high values, the heart of this coin's appeal lies in its mystery. Nobody knows exactly how many were minted in error, how many have survived, or how many more may be sitting undiscovered. And mystery is valuable. It creates excitement, curiosity, and hope that the next rare coin might appear unexpectedly. The 1989 Washington quarter reminds collectors that valuable finds don't always come from ancient treasures or pre-1900 rarities. Sometimes they come from modern coins minted just a few decades ago. As people continue collecting, hunting, and checking their spare change, this coin remains at the top of the list of modern treasures. Every time a new one surfaces, it grabs headlines. Every time another auction record is broken, collectors get even more motivated to search. And every time someone pulls a 1989 quarter out of circulation, there's always that spark of possibility, the thought that this simple, familiar coin might be the next one worth between $33,000 and $300,290. That possibility is what keeps the legend of the Sarah quarter alive, making it a coin that continues to fascinate, surprise, and redefine what modern numismatics can be. The 1982 Washington quarter is one of those coins that looks completely ordinary on the surface, just another quarter that millions of Americans spent on vending machines, parking meters, or loose change in their pocket. But hidden among those everyday coins are a few extraordinary era pieces from 1982 that have shocked collectors, stunned auction rooms, and climbed to unbelievable price levels, with some reaching anywhere from $44,000 to nearly $298,000, depending on condition, rarity, and the type of era. And that's exactly what makes this coin one of the most fascinating discoveries of modern U.S. coinage. Because the truth is, almost nobody expected the 1982 Washington quarter to become valuable, let alone rare. Yet here we are, decades later, watching these era coins break records and spark new interest among collectors who thought they knew every twist in the story of American quarters. The year 1982 was unique for U.S. coinage. There was a time of cost-cutting at the U.S. Mint, leading to major changes in how coins were produced, including the removal of the mint mark on Philadelphia coins. At the same time, the Mint faced one of its busiest production periods, striking hundreds of millions of quarters. And whenever high-speed production meets pressure and demand, that's where errors love to hide. Some of the most valuable 1982 Washington quarter errors include off-center strikes, broad strikes, double dies, filled dies, missing clad layers, and even dramatic strike-through mistakes. These are the coins that transform a regular quarter into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And collectors know it. Imagine finding a 1982 quarter that's missing its entire outer clad layer, leaving the copper core exposed on one or both sides. That kind of error immediately grabs attention because it's bold, visible, and extremely easy to identify even if you're not a seasoned coin expert. One of these missing clad layer 1982 quarters once appeared at auction and instantly became the star of the event, climbing deep into the five-figure range. Then you have the double die errors, coins where parts of the lettering or design appear doubled, creating a dramatic visual effect that collectors absolutely love. Some of the strongest doubling can be seen on the motto, the date, or Washington's profile, and depending on severity and condition, these pieces have sold for astonishing prices. One of the most talked about auction moments involved a 1982 quarter with a rare off-center strike combined with a die break running across Washington's portrait. As soon as bidding opened, multiple collectors jumped in instantly, pushing the price well above expectations. When the hammer finally dropped, the coin had reached well over $40,000, shocking even experienced numismatists. But even that wasn't the highest recorded sale. The real shocker came when a major coin grading service sold a pristine 1982 double error quarter, featuring both a dramatic strike-through and a missing clad layer, in near-mint condition. Collectors knew instantly that this was the type of error that doesn't appear twice. So bidding was fierce, fast, and emotional. The final selling price? Close to $298,000, making it one of the most unbelievable Washington quarter sales ever seen. What's truly fascinating about 1,982 quarters is that the average person could easily overlook one in their change. These coins don't scream for attention unless you know exactly what to look for. For example, some quarters from that year have die cracks running across Washington's chin, neck, or even the rim. Others show a dramatic off-center strike that cuts off part of the design and pushes the rest toward the edge. Then there are strike-through errors, where something, grease, cloth, metal shavings, or even debris, gets caught between the die and the blank during the strike. When that happens, the coin can show strange textures, missing details, or odd patterns. A few of these strike-through 1982 quarters have sold for more than $20,000 to $50,000, depending on severity. Some collectors love these mistakes because they represent a literal snapshot of the minting process going wrong. Another major contributor to the rarity of 1982 quarters was the lack of mint sets produced that year. The Mint didn't release traditional collector sets in 1982, meaning collectors didn't have access to guaranteed high-quality examples. So the only way to find well-preserved 1982 quarters, especially aero pieces, is through circulation finds or lucky discoveries in old coin rolls. That scarcity alone is enough to elevate their value dramatically. When people realize that mint-state 1982 quarters with major errors are extremely rare, bidding becomes even more aggressive. And that's why, every time one appears at a major auction house like Heritage or Stack's Bowers, it creates a wave of excitement. One auction in particular showcased a 1982 quarter with an off-center strike of nearly 45%, combined with a clean and bold rim clip on the opposite side. The coin looked astonishing, almost like a factory-cut piece of metal that accidentally made its way onto the press. Collectors lined up for this one, and after several rounds of intense bidding, it sold for more than $60,000, a price that forever cemented this coin among the most valuable modern-era quarter errors. Stories like these are why so many people today check their change carefully. The idea that a simple 1982 quarter, the kind you might have tossed in a drawer or used in a vending machine, could be worth tens of thousands of dollars makes the hunt exciting. And the truth is, these errors truly are out there. People have discovered them in old jars, estate sales, inherited coin collections, and even in random pocket change they hadn't checked in years. So what should you look for if you're hoping to find a 1982 Washington quarter worth a fortune? The biggest indicators include dramatic off-center strikes, missing clad layers, bold double dies, large die cracks, and coins missing design elements due to strike-through errors. Many of these features are visible without a magnifying glass, making them ideal for new collectors or casual searchers. And considering the top sales range from $44,000 all the way to $298,000, taking a closer look is definitely worth the effort. The beauty of collecting coins like the 1982 Washington quarter is that every discovery tells a story. Each era holds a moment frozen in time, an unexpected twist during minting that transformed the common piece of currency into an extraordinary treasure. These coins remind us that rarity isn't always planned. Sometimes it's created by accident, overlooked for decades, then rediscovered by someone who recognizes the value hidden in plain sight. And that's why the 1982 Washington quarter remains one of the most exciting modern-era coins in U.S. history. It's a perfect blend of rarity, dramatic minting mistakes, surprising auction results, and the thrill of the hunt. Whether you've been collecting for years or you're just starting to explore this fascinating world, one thing is certain: the next extraordinary 1982 quarter could still be out there, and it might just end up in your hands. When most people look at a simple Washington quarter from 1987, they see just another ordinary coin that has passed through millions of hands over the last 3 decades. But coin collectors know something different. They know that hidden among the countless 1987 quarters are rare, valuable era coins that have shocked experts, stunned bidders, and sold for eye-opening prices. These coins prove once again that the smallest details, tiny imperfections created at the U.S. Mint, can transform a 25-cent piece into a treasure worth anywhere between $54,000 and an unbelievable $292,000. And yes, those numbers are real. Collectors often say that coins like this don't just appear, they reveal themselves. Maybe you find one sitting in an old drawer, stuck in the corner of a cup holder of a car you bought years ago, or mixed in a roll of quarters you grabbed from the bank without thinking twice. But when it's a 1987 Hero quarter, everything changes. Your heartbeat speeds up. Your hands shake a little. Then you realize that a life-changing moment might be sitting right there between your fingers. The 1987 Washington quarter is interesting because most examples circulated heavily, leaving only a small number of coins in excellent condition, which already increases value. But the real prizes are the dramatic arrow versions, off-center strikes, double dies, clipped planchets, missing letters, and even rare misaligned die arrows that show dramatic shifting of the design. These are the kinds of mistakes that usually get caught and destroyed immediately, yet a few always escape, making them incredibly desirable. Imagine finding one of the off-center strikes where the portrait of Washington sits noticeably pushed toward the edge, leaving a blank crescent of metal on the other side. Even a small percentage of off-center can raise value into the thousands, but dramatic arrows, 30%, 50%, and especially the nearly 70% off-center strikes, have sold at auction for numbers that you would expect from antique gold, not from a modern quarter. One example shocked bidders when it climbed past $54,000, and another unusually bold arrow topped that by a mile, hitting a staggering $292,000 after a fierce bidding war where collectors refused to back down. Another type that brings serious attention is the double die arrow. These are not easy to spot unless you know what you're looking for, doubling in the numbers of the date, in the letters of liberty, or on phrases like, "In God we trust." When the doubling is strong enough to be clear without a magnifier, collectors go wild for it. One well-preserved double-die 1987 quarter, certified by a major grading company, reached a major auction stage where it climbed far beyond expectations, soaring into the high five figures. Even lightly circulated examples have surprised collectors with sales over $15,000 to $25,000, all because the doubling was noticeable and the demand was high, and then there are the coins struck on the wrong planchet. These are among the rarest of all mint mistakes. A quarter struck on a nickel planchet or on a copper-based planchet instead of its intended copper-nickel-clad disc creates immediately recognizable differences, thinner weight, unusual color, or incorrect diameter. When these appear, collectors don't hesitate. They know they might never see another one again. One such 1987 wrong planchet quarter created a wave of excitement when it was authenticated and sent to auction, ultimately selling for just under $200,000, a breathtaking amount for a coin that started life as a simple 25-cent piece. Some of the most unusual and sought-after era coins involve clash dies, where the outverse and reverse dies strike each other without a coin between them, leaving ghost-like outlines of the opposite design embedded into the surfaces. When a real coin is then struck using those damaged dies, it produces a haunting, almost artistic effect. The 1987 clash die quarters are extremely scarce, and some high-grade examples have sold for over $40,000 to $60,000, especially if the clash lines are strong and the coin remains mostly untouched by circulation. Collectors also pay heavily for missing letter or weak strike arrows where parts of the design did not transfer properly. A 1987 quarter missing portions of United States of America, or quarter dollar, drew national attention at an auction a few years ago and brought in a winning bid above $70,000 because the coin remained in near-mint condition and displayed an unmistakable mint-induced flaw. Stories of discoveries only fuel the excitement. One collector in Ohio was sorting through a can of quarters he had saved for parking meters and laundromats. At the bottom of the can, he found a quarter that looked slightly off. The strike was shifted, the rim was thicker on one side, and the design sat strangely low. He almost tossed it back until he noticed that the date, 1987, combined with the striking arrow made it something special. After professional grading, he learns that his accidental find was worth over $60,000. A coin he had nearly overlooked became the most valuable thing he had ever held. Another story comes from a retiree in Arizona who collected coins casually but never expected anything extraordinary. While reviewing a jar he had ignored for decades, he spotted what looked like a double outline on Washington's profile. Under a magnifier, the doubling was unmistakable. That coin eventually sold for over $90,000, and the buyer considered it a bargain. The thrill of these finds is part of what keeps collectors searching, roll hunting, drawer checking, pocket change scanning, hoping that lightning might strike. Coins like the 1987 Hero quarter remind everyone that history, rarity, and value sometimes hide in the most ordinary places. What makes these coins even more exciting is the growing attention to mint eras in the collector world. As auctions continue to feature era coins with record-breaking prices, more and more people are taking a closer look at their everyday change. Some auction houses now dedicate entire sessions to era coins because interest has exploded. During one of these sessions, a dramatic 1987 off-center quarter with almost perfect original luster stunned the room as bidding escalated rapidly and finally closed to near $250,000. Moments like that prove just how desirable these unique mistakes have become. Many people assume that only older coins can fetch high prices, but this quarter destroys that myth entirely. Even though it's from 1987, a fairly modern era compared to early US coinage, its value comes from rarity, condition, and the shock factor of its mint era. The fewer examples known, the higher the demand, and the more collectors are willing to pay. So whether you're a long-time collector or someone just starting out, the lesson is simple: always check your coins. Look for shifted designs, missing details, doubled letters, unusual thickness, strange edges, or anything that just doesn't look right. The 1987 Washington quarter proves that life-changing value can be hiding in the smallest imperfections. And who knows, you might be holding a coin worth tens of thousands, or even closer to $292,000 without realizing it, because sometimes the rarest treasures don't shine at first glance. Sometimes they sit quietly in your pocket, waiting for the right moment to be discovered.